In a modern air war, you don't need to shoot down the enemy's fighter jets. You shoot down their gas stations, because without aerial refueling, the most advanced fighter on Earth becomes a very expensive piece of scrap metal, stranded hundreds of miles from home with no way back. This is why the United States operates 610 aerial refueling tankers. China operates 9. That gap between 610 and 9 is not just a number. It is the single most important measurement of who can project military power anywhere on Earth and who cannot. Today, we're going inside the technology, the strategy, and the global power game of aerial refueling. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why China is spending billions to close that gap, and why the United States is quietly moving to replace its human tanker crews with autonomous drones. Here is the fundamental problem that aerial refueling solves. A modern fighter jet, an F-35, a Eurofighter, a Rafale, has a combat radius of roughly 600 to 900 miles on internal fuel. That sounds like a lot, but in strategic terms, it means a fighter based in Germany cannot reach a target in Syria without landing somewhere in between. And landing somewhere in between requires a friendly country to say yes. That permission, the diplomatic access to forward bases, to overflight rights, to refueling on the ground, is itself a form of geopolitical leverage that potential adversaries spend decades trying to deny. Aerial refueling eliminates that dependency entirely. With a tanker orbiting at altitude, a fighter jet's combat radius extends from 900 miles to effectively unlimited. The United States flew B-2 stealth bombers from Missouri to Afghanistan and back, a round trip of over 17,000 miles without landing once. 17,000 miles, non-stop, because tankers were waiting along the route. This is what military planners mean when they talk about global power projection. It is not about having the best aircraft. It is about having the infrastructure to put those aircraft anywhere on Earth at any time, regardless of what any nation on the ground decides to allow. And that infrastructure is built on tankers. Now let's talk about how this actually works, because the engineering is genuinely extraordinary. There are two systems used for aerial refueling. They are fundamentally different, incompatible with each other, and the choice between them has created one of NATO's most persistent interoperability headaches. The first is the probe and drogue system. Imagine a garden hose trailing behind an aircraft at 300 miles per hour, with a basket at the end, roughly the size of a large umbrella. The receiving aircraft extends a rigid probe from its nose and flies it into that basket. The pilot does this manually, at 300 miles per hour, in turbulence, sometimes at night, sometimes in cloud. The margin for error is measured in inches. France, the United Kingdom, and most naval aviation use this system. It is flexible. A single tanker can refuel multiple aircraft simultaneously, but it requires exceptional pilot skill. The second system is the flying boom. This is where it gets remarkable. A rigid telescoping tube, up to 28 feet long, extends from the rear of the tanker. Inside the tanker, a boom operator lies face down in a dedicated station, looking through a window at the receiver aircraft approaching from behind. Using a joystick and 3D cameras, the boom operator guides the fuel pipe into a small receptacle on top of the receiving aircraft, while both planes travel at over 300 miles per hour in close formation, with the receiver aircraft just 20 to 50 feet below and behind the tanker. It has been described as the most demanding precision task in military aviation. But here is where the technology is heading, and it changes everything. The Boeing MQ-25 Stingray is an autonomous tanker drone currently being developed for the US Navy. No pilot, no boom operator, controlled remotely, launched from aircraft carriers, capable of refueling F-35s in contested airspace, where sending a manned tanker would be suicidal. The age of the unmanned tanker has already begun. Now back to that number, 610 versus 9. China's People's Liberation Army Air Force currently operates approximately 18 dedicated aerial refueling tankers, primarily variants of the aging H-6U, a platform based on a 1950s Soviet bomber design. That number limits China's air power to a radius of roughly 1,500 miles from its borders, enough to contest the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, but not enough to project sustained air power across the Pacific or into the Indian Ocean. Beijing knows this. China is developing the Y-20U, a tanker variant of its large Y-20 transport aircraft, comparable in capability to the US KC-46. Intelligence assessments suggest China intends to field 60 to 80 operational tankers by 2035. The strategic implications are profound. A Chinese air force with 80 modern tankers can project power into the second island chain. It can sustain combat operations over the Philippine Sea. It can support strike missions that would currently be impossible due to fuel constraints. International relations scholars describe this as a power transition dynamic, a rising power systematically building the infrastructure of global reach that previously only the hegemon possessed. The tanker fleet is not a headline-grabbing weapons program. There are no dramatic tests, no satellite images of mysterious new aircraft, just the slow, methodical expansion of a logistics capability that will quietly transform the strategic balance in the Pacific. Meanwhile, the United States is not standing still. Italy recently signed a $1.6 billion contract for 6 Airbus A330MRTT tankers, extending NATO's southern flank refueling capacity across the Mediterranean and into North Africa. The UK, France, Australia, Japan, and South Korea have all upgraded or expanded their tanker fleets in the past 5 years. The tanker race is global, and it is accelerating. Here is the vulnerability that every Air Force planner loses sleep over. Tankers are enormous, slow, and completely unarmed. A KC-135. Stratotanker is 136 feet long, cruises at 530 miles per hour, carries no weapons, and needs to orbit in a predictable pattern to service the aircraft it supports. It is, in military terminology, a high-value target. China's PLA has developed the PL-15 air-to-air missile with an estimated range exceeding 200 miles, specifically designed to engage targets like tankers and airborne warning aircraft before they can be protected by escort fighters. Russia's R-37M missile has a similar capability and a claimed range of over 300 miles. The logic is straightforward and brutally effective. You don't need to fight through the escort fighters. You shoot the tanker from outside their defensive perimeter. Without the tanker, the entire strike package, the fighters, the bombers, the electronic warfare aircraft, either turns back or runs dry. The US Air Force has responded with 2 approaches. First, tankers are now being equipped with self-protection systems, radar warning receivers, electronic countermeasures, and towed decoys. The KC-46 Pegasus has a more sophisticated self-protection suite than any previous tanker in history. Second, and more significantly, the MQ-25 Stingray autonomous tanker is designed specifically to operate in contested airspace, where sending a manned aircraft would be unacceptable. A drone tanker that is shot down is a tactical loss. A manned tanker that is shot down is a strategic and political crisis. The shift to autonomous tankers is not primarily about cost or efficiency. It is about removing the human cost from the most vulnerable node in the air power network. Step back from the technology for a moment and consider what aerial refueling actually represents geopolitically. The ability to refuel in flight is the ability to act unilaterally, without asking permission, without depending on allies, without being constrained by the geography of friendly bases. For the United States, that capability has been the physical foundation of global military primacy since the Cold War. The tanker fleet is not a supporting asset. It is the infrastructure of hegemony. For China, closing the tanker gap is not about matching the United States aircraft for aircraft. It is about acquiring the capability to act beyond its immediate neighborhood, to have options that currently do not exist. For middle powers like the UAE, Australia, Japan, and the European NATO members investing in tanker fleets, the calculation is different again. A tanker fleet is an alliance contribution, the ability to extend the reach of partners and thereby earn a seat at the strategic planning table. Italy's $1.6 billion MRTT purchase is not just about Italian air power. It is about Italy's role in NATO's southern flank, its influence in North African and Mediterranean operations, and its credibility as a serious military partner. The flying boom and the probe and drogue are engineering solutions to a physics problem, but what they enable, the politics of who can act where, when, and without asking permission, that is a question that will define the strategic balance of the 21st century, and it will be answered in part by whoever controls the gas stations in the sky. If you found this analysis valuable, the full written version, with data sources, international relations theory references, and deeper strategic context, is available at aerospaceheadlines.com. Link in the description below. This is Strategic Balance, fact-based assessment of how aerospace capabilities are reshaping global power, published on Aerospace Headlines. If this is the kind of analysis you've been looking for, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.